Hey everyone, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bringing you a review today of a great film, not an obscure film. I don't only talk about obscure, little, weird, forgotten things on this channel, although I do focus on those a lot to try to get them out there in the public eye. Today I'm talking about Gilda, 1946, starring the fabulous Rita Hayworth. A hell of a movie. Well worth watching, and yes, today there are going to be spoilers. So, story, E.A. Ellington, adaptation by Joe Eisinger, screenplay by Marion Parsonet, produced by Virginia Van Up. You mean they let women do stuff like that? But yeah, let women, then let it. Of course, women were involved in filmmaking back in the 1940s. What's wrong with you? Directed by Charles Vidor. Cinematography, Rudolph Maté. Okay. Let's jump into this film. It's a really nicely shot film, black and white, beautiful cinematography, really strong performance from Rita Hayworth. But also beautifully backed up by Glenn Ford, who's going to be playing Johnny Farrell, George McCready as Balin Munson, Joseph Calleja as Detective Obregon, Stephen Garay as Uncle Pio, Captain Delgado, played by Gerald Moore. It's almost a crime story. The crime is the MacGuffin, though. This is a story about two people. And it's a deeply emotional story about those two people. We start off seeing Johnny Farrell, played by Glenn Ford, shooting dice and doing very well. And of course, the main reason that he's doing very well is he's cheating. He takes his winnings from these folks, and he is accosted and nearly killed, if not for the intervention of Balin. Balin, played by George McCready. A vaguely European accent. We would presume maybe German, based on the fact that they're in Argentina, based on the fact it's 1946, based on the fact that we're going to have a couple other Germans come into this film later on. And he has a cane with a blade in it that he uses to kill one of the attackers. Tells Johnny he ought to go see him at his casino that he owns. Johnny shows up and realizes it's a very nice casino, has to get himself something better to wear. That's Uncle Pio. Uncle Pio in this film, played by Stephen Garay, is sort of, okay, he's not a narrator. He's always lurking about. He's an observer. He's a commentator on what's going on in the film with these characters, and he'll play a critical role at the end of the film. So gets himself all dressed up, gets into the casino. We see this moment where he has this sort of chance encounter with Detective Obregon. Doesn't know who he is. It's just a moment, but it's important to the film. And we're also going to see this little fella, who's going to be very important in the film as well. These are two people who are sort of hanging about this casino. So Johnny gets into the action and does extremely well. And why does he do extremely well? Well, he's been cheating again. And of course, casinos aren't real big on that. I can tell you that for a fact, living as I do in Las Vegas. There are many legendary stories of things, especially back in the old days, that happened to people who cheated in casinos in Las Vegas. They're not very pleasant. But Balin gets an idea, and Johnny helps him along with it. Hey, okay, I know how to cheat. Why don't you hire me to make sure other people aren't cheating you? And so this partnership is forged between these two men. Both of them, when you get right down to it, criminals, neither entirely trustworthy. And there's gonna be, it's a good partnership at first, but it's gonna become very strained. Because at some point, Balin goes on a little vacation, leaves Johnny in charge. Johnny doesn't do anything wrong while he's in charge. But Balin comes home with a wife. Now, there's a great little scene where Johnny and Balin have a drink. Not to the two of them, but to the three of them. The third being that cane Balin carries with the blade in it. That's the partnership. And it's workable. But it's not going to be workable for long. And here we have the introduction of Rita Hayworth. One of the great little moments in film as she sort of comes from below the screen, does the hair back, smiles, gorgeous actress, beautifully shot little introduction to this character. Johnny is not pleased. Johnny knows Gilda. Gilda knows Johnny. And that's going to really be the important story through the rest of this film. It's that the relationship between these two characters. And you can see she's not happy, but she quickly composes herself and walks up as though there's nothing wrong. There's a lot of tension between the two people. And a little bit of verbal sparring, but done in such a subtle way that Balin is not supposed to notice. But you notice Balin comes in for a kiss, and where are Gilda's eyes? Also notice the way they interpose his body. Like I said, beautifully shot film, very smart cinematography. You look at the positions of characters in various scenes, it means something. Balin, of course, does pick up on things. He knows there's something between these two. Confronts Johnny about it a little bit. Johnny's kind of like, no, I don't know anything. Now, again, look at the way in the frame how Balin dominates the frame with Johnny in the background and turns his back. And again, he's like this immense black shadow. And that's the feeling you're supposed to get from this character. He's a killer. He's arrogant. He's imposing. He's dominant. He wants to make sure Johnny knows he's dominant. And truth be told, and I think this is kind of interesting because Glenn Ford, known for playing a very masculine character, did some Westerns. He was Superman's dad in the absolutely classic 70s Superman film. A sort of masculine, not necessarily macho, overly macho, but a masculine, rugged character. And he's called upon in this film to play something slightly different. A man who's sort of been beaten. He's trying to get his confidence back. He takes the inferior role to Balin willingly. Things have not gone well for him. This is a new start. He's trying to genuinely make the best of it, even though he's involved in maybe a somewhat crooked enterprise. He's trying to make the best of it. So it's a different kind of role for Glenn Ford, and he does a very good job with it. And you see, he's haunted. What happened between these two? You're never going to get just a pure explanation. It's never going to be an information dump. You're going to have to put the pieces together, and you're still not going to know for absolutely sure by the time this film ends what exactly happened. Balin goes back upstairs and has a little chat with Gilda, who, again, trying to play it off as no problem. But he knows. Back to this little fella. He's at the gambling tables. He's going to be important to this story. You're going to see him pop up several times. You're going to see his big scene a little bit later on. So we now go to maybe one of the most uncomfortable dinners in film history, as Balin, Gilda, and Johnny sitting at the table. And again, Balin back to us, maybe a little bit less imposing here. Gilda sitting, it looks like, close to Johnny. Now, if you move the angle, you see that she's actually sitting right in the center of this booth. She's really no closer to him than she is to Balin. But from this angle, it looks that way. And of course, that's what they're going for. The two of them are drawn to each other. They repel each other. They hate each other. I mean, make no doubt about it. You talk about a love-hate relationship, and it's full-on hate at this moment. But Balin also watching and observing and seeing. And those two, at this point, trying to play it off. Johnny is trying to be the good minion of Balin. He really is. He really is. But you notice, too, Gilda can't take her eyes off of him. It's just so expressive. I'm going to tell you, Rita Hayworth, beautiful actress. And we all know there are actresses and actors who can get by on beauty alone in films. But she's so grounded and authentic, and man, does she have some scenes. And she is the top billed actor in this film, and she owns the movie. Strongest performance in the movie by far, really. And again, Ford's great in this role, but he doesn't dominate. He doesn't remotely eclipse Hayworth. She is fantastic in this movie. If you've never watched it, and really, if you're not really aware of Rita Hayworth as an actress, because maybe somewhat like Marilyn Monroe, I mean, pretty face, and her image has survived to this day. But a damn good actress and fantastic in this film. And you see Balin watching the two of them, and he's not feeling so comfortable now. Up till now, he's had that imposing kind of seeing weakness here, just beginning to see weakness here. The audience is. Johnny's not. He still fears him to a certain degree. And then the Germans show up. Don't mention the war. No. These two fellas show up. They want to talk with Balin, and he's going to have a talk with them. Now, this gets into the sort of MacGuffin of the film, which has to do with mines and various like smelting works that are owned, a sort of a conglomerate that has a monopoly on these things. It certainly seems to be tied maybe to Nazi Germany and the war, and Balin is in control of this syndicate. These are two men who are involved, who are not necessarily happy with him, but seeing that Balin realizes he has to leave, and he does. And Gilda, a guy comes up, wants to dance with her. Johnny's like, no. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. So she's not trying to make her husband jealous. She's trying to make Johnny jealous. And it's a dangerous thing to do, considering her husband is. But he has this moment with Detective Obregon, who says, like, women are annoying, aren't they? And Johnny's so off she goes to dance with this fellow. And again, look where her eyes are. They're on Johnny the whole time. Boy, does she have, I mean, those, she really pierces you with those, like, it's not just that she has eyes for him, they're angry, but they're more than angry, and he's, kind of returning it. And so she's trying to make him jealous, dancing. Balin returns, says, hey, what's going on? Johnny, well, she wanted to dance. What am I going to do? Stop her? And he's kind of like, yeah, you are. You're in charge of protecting what I own, my property, and that includes Gilda. So he goes and he breaks it up. We have a little bit of scene on the dance floor. And she just plays it, you know, alternately kind of cool and then emotional. And you're so often going, God, what happened between these two? And Balin is seeing there's an emotional connection between them. It's anger, it's hate, but it's an emotional connection that he doesn't have. And so he confronts her now again in the room. Oh, this is beautifully shot with the shadow. You know this guy. What do you know him from? I don't think anybody's ever really known him. Oh, I see. On the bed with her, she's trying to play it off. She's trying to be playful. But he makes her understand in his very evil sort of way, you don't screw with me, you know? And she's sort of going, oh, I'm not going to maybe be able to get away with a whole lot with this guy. Is it going to stop her? No. And again, look at how he's sort of not entirely in the frame. He's this looming shadow, this sort of danger. Okay. She's down there the next day. She's at the gaming tables. Obregon is watching, as he always is. Here's our little weaselly dude who pops in. Obregon is watching him as well. There's a nice moment between her and Uncle Pio. Lights a cigarette for her as she watches this guy go up the stairs to talk to Balin. Realizes she doesn't want the cigarette. She kind of flicks it, hits this guy, very handsome young guy, who she immediately starts to flirt with because she sees that Johnny is watching. Look at that. Oh, so well filmed. So beautifully filmed. Pio is sort of like, hey, what's going on? All right. He's like a constant source of, annoyance to Johnny, and has sort of a attitude of, you're a peasant. What are you, what do you think you're doing? But he's an important character. I don't know if you ever like him, but you kind of respect him at a certain point. Now, again, look at how this is filmed. Look at how tall Balin is. Look at how small Weasley guy is. And look at that, dwarfing him as they're arguing over money. And Johnny's kind of like, what's going on here? You don't need to necessarily know. He returns to find her dancing with this guy. Hey, dance is over. Now, she knows this is dangerous, but she can't quite keep herself from trying to make Johnny jealous, which tells you the depth of feeling she has towards him. And again, you just see the emotion on her face. Weasley dude is contemplating things. He's not getting what he wants, what he thinks he deserves. A deal has not gone as it should. So Balin is then having a drink with Johnny. And here's where stuff really, really picks up. As Weasley dude pulls a gat and takes a shot. Now, this is important. Again, on the one hand, this advances the storyline of this monopoly and whatever's going on with that. Again, it's not terribly important. But it is revealing of character, and you can sort of see the break in the glass behind Balin. He cowers. He shrinks down, even kind of gives out a little yelp when the shot is fired. And while he's doing this, Johnny jumps up to go deal with the problem. You see who the stronger person actually is. It's a break in character. Now, it doesn't necessarily change the way Johnny looks at him. But Balin, I think, knows he's let himself look weak, and that worries him. Weasley guy flees, goes into this room, and apparently ends his own life. Obregon is there, again, always watching. That's Pio coming out, saying to Obregon, yeah, guy's gone. Johnny now sees Balin at the bar getting a drink, and he's kind of in shock. He's played this dominant character. He felt very confident in himself, and now he's actually faced death. And he's a little bit worried about it. You know, he's the classic bully. They go upstairs, and he needs to maybe tell Johnny a little bit. So he's going to reveal to Johnny, I'm involved with this syndicate. Was it molybdenum? I'm trying to think of what the metal that they control is. Again, it's not particularly important what it is, but he lets him know, here's the safe, here's where everything is. If anything happens to me, you need to deal with it. Johnny, outside, sees Gilda arrive with her little boy toy. Now, he wants to protect Balin from seeing what she is, and keep in mind, and I think you start to understand too, she probably did this to Johnny to some degree. You get the feeling he was deeply in love with her. She hurt him. He hurt her back. It feels mutual. But you do kind of get the feeling that initially she was to blame. And he sees her doing it again to this guy who he has some respect for. The guy pulled him out of the gutter. He owes him. So there's a little confrontation. The young guy feels, he's feeling his oats. He doesn't feel them for very long. Johnny just basically takes the guy down quick. The guy literally slinks away, and Gilda is pissed. But there's also that, does he maybe care about me? Some words between them. It's stuff you really got to watch. Now, as Johnny's in bed that night, he hears music coming from the casino. And he goes to look, and he sees Gilda playing her guitar on the gaming table. Uncle Pio is there watching. There's kind of a zoom down. I show still photos for these reviews because I don't want to deal with copyright strikes and such. Watch Gilda if you've never watched it. It's so beautifully filmed. She sings this song. She was a singer, a dancer before her marriage. Probably how Johnny met her in the first place. And she does a fantastic job in this. And this is where we start to see some genuine emotion from her. She's been playing it off. Maybe a little shock, a little anger, but, always in the smile. Like, I'm not going to. And here you can see how sorry she is for what happened, really. She's not quite there to saying it, but, you see how emotionally hung up she is on Johnny. And I think I'm trying to think if that was the moment when she admits that she's afraid of Balin. Which Johnny's probably like, well, you probably should be afraid of Balin. So, again, we have another moment, Balin, her, Johnny, him observing, look at this shot, how Balin is completely in silhouette. Now, before, though, that was more imposing. Here it's almost like he's shrinking. He's becoming less a person, less important. It's a good scene. It leads up to this masquerade. It's Carnival in Rio. And she's upset because Balin's not going to be able to take her. It's going to have to be Johnny. It's a moment. They're dancing. They're talking. Again, some just beautifully filmed. Johnny's pissed, though. Johnny, he's affected by her, but that anger is burning inside of him, without a doubt. I love this. I love the scene, the way this is shot, as he's watching Obregon behind him. He's watching her do her thing. And he gets this note from her. She sort of disappeared. Can you pick up the laundry in front of the Hotel Centenario? Is that Centenario? Maybe Centenario. About 2:00 should be all right. Now, what does that mean? Well, when he says, look, I'm in charge of Balin's property, meaning her. She goes, oh, like I'm the laundry that you have to, you know, take out. So laundry is referring to her. And I love how in old movies, they always give everybody time to read things like this, because they knew people didn't necessarily read that fast back then. Changed by the time you got to the 80s. I think we're at a time where they maybe have to do that. He's finding out from Balin that there's some trouble. And it has to do with those Germans. And so we have this moment between these two. You can see, though, Johnny steadfast. Balin has escaped, taking off in this airplane. As they watch him leave, the airplane apparently explodes, crashes. Balin is gone. Johnny is now in control. But is Balin really gone? He's pulled an escape. The police were closing in, but more importantly, the people he worked with was closing in. Johnny then gets into the safe, sees what's going on, gets a better idea of everything, knows that he's now in control. So here's where psychologically, emotionally, the film goes up a notch. Johnny marries Gilda. She's got what she wants. She's quite happy. And then she sees on the wall a painting of Balin. Johnny now has the upper hand. And this is where you go, okay, I think she's the one who really hurt him. And this is his revenge. And more or less keeps her a prisoner in her room. It's not what she had expected. He's having his revenge out on her, and it is a cruel revenge. There's some really striking scenes between the two of them. You know, she's always been able to kind of get what she wants with some flirtation, etc., and that's not the case anymore. She manages to get away, goes elsewhere. Oh, geez, where was it? Was it Ecuador? Golly, I can't think now. Kind of on the, you know, or no, I'm sorry. At this point, I think she was maybe still, she might have still been in Rio at this point, but, you know, goes out for drinks with this guy, goes to get in the taxi with him. And Johnny's guys intercept the guy. He doesn't make it into the cab. Cab drives off. You notice that Libra right there. I think they're going for something. She does, though, end up somewhere else. And I can't think of where it was now. In South America, though, doing nightclub act, etc. Still trying to get away. She wants a divorce. She wants her freedom. She goes to visit Johnny again to try to get it with a lawyer, I believe he was, who, I'm going to help you, but actually he was bringing her back to Johnny. And there's this really explosive, powerful scene between these two as she slaps him and she's beating him on the chest and collapses down to the floor. And Johnny's just cold. Johnny is just cold. You know? That's what love lost. That's what betrayal can do. Then in the casino, his casino, we get a really famous scene. Her in that dress, well-known images of that, as she sings Put the Blame on Mame, which, by the way, was the song that was being sung by Gypsy Rosalie in Screaming Mimi, which I reviewed a few weeks ago. Does this very, you know, sexy song. The crowd is eating it up. Johnny, seeing it, is sort of angered, horrified. At the end, she starts taking off like jewelry and throwing it to the crowd, and the guys are like, yeah, take it off. You know, and she goes for it like, okay, I need some help with the zipper, you know. And you notice, though, watching Johnny the whole time as this doofus comes up there, oh, man. Johnny's guys intercept, drag her off. Johnny grabs her by the arm. Another scene. She's like, just let me go. For God's sakes, let me go. Look at that. Oh, she's so good in this movie. He's at the bar, and I think this is the point where he's had his revenge. It means nothing. It really means nothing. He's regretting it all. He wants out. He talks to Obregon, shows him the safe, or tells him about the safe. Gilda winds up back in the bar. It's after hours. Uncle Pio is there. She's ready to go home. Johnny appears. And we have this final important moment between the two. And so we've had this burning hatred between these two, with her angry that Johnny left, even though she probably drove him away, probably broke his heart. He gets his revenge. They've exhausted it at this point. And she's going back home to America. And it's just this really great moment of him saying, please take me with you. Just please take me with you. And a great line from her. She's like, this is wonderful because, like, we were both such stinkers that neither of us needs to apologize. Like, we're even. We're even. And now maybe we can get on with our lives. And then who should appear from the shadows but Balin? Balin, who now wants revenge, a cold revenge, as he approaches them. Initially was going to use his stick with the blade. He puts it on the bar, pulls a gun. He's going to shoot them. Johnny steps in front of her, of course. And as Balin approaches, Uncle Pio picks up the stick and thrusts it into his back. He gets off a gunshot into the floor and then collapses. The great and powerful man, the bully, killed by meek little Uncle Pio. Detective Obregon appears. And before he does, Johnny's like, you got to get out of here. I'll take the rap or whatever. And Obregon is like, no crime's been committed. Balin was already dead, as far as anyone knew. He goes, actually, I came back because you didn't tell me where the safe was to get all the evidence. They tell him. And Gilda's affected by the moment, but they straighten things out with Obregon. He says, basically, get on out of here. We get a nice moment, and the two walk hand in hand away. It is an extraordinary picture, because, again, you get this sort of, it's going to be a film noir thing. There's crime. There's this syndicate. There's this. No. This is a picture about, somewhat a triangle. The two of them with Balin. I guess I can take the spoilers. Well, maybe I better keep that up, actually. But it's really about these two. And it's about the consequences of intense love that is betrayed and how it turns to hate. And these two spend the entire movie trying to hurt each other until they're just exhausted. The hate is gone. And in this case, it leads to a new beginning. When they get back to America, who knows? Who knows? But it's an amazingly strong performance by Rita Hayworth. And she is the reason really to watch this film. Not because she's eye candy, although she is eye candy. There's no doubt about it. She's gorgeous in this movie. She is such a powerful actress in this film. The range of emotion. It is fantastic. Fantastic. Now I will take the spoilers off and say, yes, I give this film an A+. It's beautifully shot, beautifully acted, very well written. An absolute essential for viewing. If you really love movies, maybe you haven't watched a lot of black and white films. I know people that are kind of odd about that. They only want to watch color. Color would have ruined this film. Would have ruined it. Get into black and white films. There's something very special about them. And the people who made them learned the craft of using black and white to their advantage. When color came in, and color film was already back. It was around by 46. It was around in the late 30s. It's just it was expensive, so not every film was used for it. But when color became standard, they kind of had to relearn how to make movies again. Because what they did with black and white didn't work necessarily that well with color. This is one of the great black and white films. Gilda, Rita Hayworth. Inessential from 1946. What say you, the viewer? Is this a film you know? Is it a film you love? Let me know in the comments what you think about this movie. Love it or hate it? I have a hard time believing anybody would hate it. Maybe not like it so much. It's so well done. It'd be a difficult movie, I think, to hate. But let me know in the comments what you think of it. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, this little review, retrospective of Gilda, maybe think about giving it a like, maybe subscribe, maybe share with a friend. That'd be really cool. I would greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Try to have a little bit of fun. Watch Gilda. And I'll see you hopefully soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.